So we're watching Boeing today, too, which is in the green for the first time in a few days. And we have a big deal coming up at 1 o'clock today. That is when Phil LeBeau has the interview with the CEO, an exclusive. Phil joins us now. What do you think Calhoun's message to you is going to be? And maybe more importantly, Phil, to investors. What is he going to try and say to you today?
Similar to what we heard in the employee town hall yesterday, which is we've got to do better. There is no excuse for these types of mistakes that have happened, although we don't know exactly what caused that door, that plug to blow out on the Alaska Airlines plane. Dave Calhoun says it doesn't matter. Ultimately, Boeing manufactured this plane. It has to do better. And I think that's what we're going to hear. We'll talk a little bit more about what we're going to be discussing with Dave Calhoun in a bit, Scott. But let me bring you up to speed in terms of what's happening with the grounding of the Max-9s that are out there. Remember, 171 of them are grounded around the world. The bulk of them are flown by Alaska and United Airlines. The inspection rules have not been finalized yet. Remember on Monday when we reported that the FAA said, yep, you're good to go? They've decided they're walking that back now. So they are still in discussions with both Boeing as well as the NTSB and sort of making sure that when these inspections are done, then the grounding can be lifted. The potential impact for Boeing on these groundings, let's say it lasts 2 weeks. Sheila Kahula gamed out a 2-week impact on Boeing in terms of payments to airlines, maybe $36 million. Not a huge hit there. But the bigger question is the reputational risk. The FAA, sensing how important this is, walking back that they do not want to be seen as just green lighting these planes to get back in the air, especially after loose parts were found, said operators must also complete corrective action requirements based on findings from the inspection prior to bringing any aircraft back into service. That was issued yesterday. 2 days ago, remember, that's when Alaska and United both said they had several instances of finding loose bolts or loose parts on the Max-9s that they've been checking out. Don't forget, we're going to be talking with Dave Calhoun. That's coming up in about 40 minutes, Scott. Lots to talk to about not only this situation, and we know how Boeing has a safety team in place. They're going to get to the bottom of what happened in this situation. But the broader question is accountability and a culture of quality control. And how does Boeing reassure investors that when it says we're at 38 Maxes per month right now, Scott, and we're going up to 50 by 2025, 2026, that it's going to be a smooth progression? That it's not going to be 3 months, oh, wait, we've got a grounding, we've got an issue, we've got a problem with one of our suppliers, okay, now we have another issue. That's been the problem here, Scott. Boeing has been unable to smoothly ramp up production, and I think Dave Calhoun realizes, you know, they've got to do better, and that's the message we're going to hear from him.
Yeah, the other issue, which, you know, doesn't have the most immediate impact, Phil, on the stock price, he has to reassure flyers, too. Like, we're going to be back to those days with the Max where, you know, you're going in and you're looking at the type of equipment you're flying. If you're making a reservation, if you do have choice of airline. Now, we know the hub system eliminates that in many markets, but you know what I'm getting at, because after the initial incidents with the Max, you had that. Go, what kind of plane am I flying today? Well, I don't want to fly that one, so maybe I'm going to look elsewhere.
Yeah, but that's a short-lived impact, Scott. That's not to diminish how people feel, and that's not to diminish this situation with Alaska Airlines. But I'm telling you, time and again, having covered this industry for several decades now, I always get this question from people. If there's an accident, will people stop flying a Boeing, an Airbus, whatever it may be? And time and again, what you hear is there may be some immediate, real close, short-term nervousness amongst flyers, but it's not something that lasts for a long time. Doesn't mean you can dismiss it if you're Boeing or Airbus, but this is not something where people are going to say, I'm not flying that particular route because it's a Max-9. Or the number of people who do that, Scott, is very, very low.
Well, I mean, it is, you know, the second time we're talking about major issues here. We'll see. Phil, we're looking forward to your interview. We'll see in about 35 minutes or so with Dave Calhoun. That's Phil LeBeau. So you own this stock. I see this coming down to two things. Yeah. It is 1 step forward versus 2 steps back versus duopoly. People who own the stock and say, these are issues, they're you know, from a stock standpoint, let's just stock standpoint, okay? That's the issue that keeps you in the stock. Like Stephanie Link. Jim Lebenthal says, I'm out. I can't take the risk anymore from the human side. Steph says, the human side worries me, obviously, but from a stock standpoint, I stay in it for the duopoly.
You do, and that's why we are. And I know you love when I say this. I'm not going to say small, but we have a very minor position.
All right.
In
I did see that in the notes. I was going to give you. I was going to give you the business about that, but I was like, I'm tired of giving you the business.
In our value portfolio, so we have the good fortune of running 10 different disciplines and 10 different benchmarks. In a value benchmark, and you're looking at a 1% position in 50 stocks, you want to bet on the value that continues to get better, because we've had a lot of 2-minute minors, to talk in hockey terms, but this is a 5-minute major. And so they're going to be in the penalty box for a while, and this is going to be all about credibility. Humility on the CEO's effort was good. It was a good start. Now we need to see credibility in terms of action steps and actually do them.
Real quick.
Well, what does that come down to in terms of cash flow expectations? Because that's what it's all about in 2024.
Right.
Is the $6 billion consensus going to need to come down to $5 billion or $4 billion? That's beyond what people expect right now.
The point is probably not.
Right.
Probably not, because as we've seen some of the data come out over the last couple of days, it's like, okay, if you are United, for example, they fly the Max. What are you going to cancel your orders? And then what are you going to do? Wait till 2030 to get a new plane from Airbus?
And therefore, the thesis that Stephanie Link and Brian are playing is ultimately looking specifically at the stock going to be the correct one.